welcome to the Pitch It To Me podcast, a show about the subjective past, present, and potential future of flesh and blood design. Today's episode will be about Zen's journey through Classic Constructed in honor of his new living legend status. You can find us across all our socials, such as Bluesky and Instagram at Pitch It To Me podcast.
I'm Fuzzy.
I'm Joel.
And I'm Aurora.
Aurora! Woo! Of the hit YouTube channel Flesh and Bad?
Flesh and Bad.
Yep.
So,
Flesh and Bad.
Fun fact, I have been watching Aurora's videos for probably the last 3 months because I've been playing Zen competitively for a long time, and they are one of the few creators that focus primarily on Zen, so I was just getting tons of resources, and now I'm really excited to have them on the podcast. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, great. Happy to be here. I think we're one of the few channels that I think only does Zen content for the most part. I think there are a couple others, but it's kind of cool that a lot of people watch our stuff for Zen tips and stuff.
And there's so many different options to go brewing with Zen. It's nice to know that someone out there has tried them all, and you can.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like no two Zen decks I play are the same.
Do you want to tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Aurora, and I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the front-facing half of the channel Flesh and Bad on YouTube. This is where my partner and I, Tegan, basically make a bunch of different kinds of content, mostly kind of like Zen gameplay, but also like misplays, ship posts, exploring F-tier heroes, and also doing like a little bit of educational content as well. I've been playing Zen pretty religiously since release. I currently hold some of Zen's earliest LL points as well as some of his more recent LL points. And I'm also in the middle of kind of a pretty big project, a full-on kind of documentary on the history of Zen from beginning to Zen, featuring some of the very prominent members of the community, which for now I'll keep a little bit of a secret. But today I'm excited to kind of join my first ever podcast, talk a little bit about Zen, and kind of wildly speculate about what a new Zen would look like in the future.
That's so cool. Nice. You're like literally writing the book about Zen.
Yeah.
I think someone has done something similar with the history of Starvo. So wow. I'm really excited for what this documentary you have working on is going to be like.
Yeah, I think that's a Blackout Party, if I'm not mistaken. I think they make a bunch of documentary. I don't know if they've done anything more recent, but they've made a lot of cool documentaries about like Prism, Starvo, Chain. I think their videos are pretty solid, but our video is going to be kind of in a very similar vein as well.
Yeah, around the time I first started playing Fab, one of my favorite parts about the community was it seemed like most YouTube channels had like a really hard focus on one hero or one class, like, you know, the card guys or Majin Bay with wizards, things like that. So I really like your channel, and I really like how all throughout the Zen's career, you're making videos on like deck techs, things like that, and now it's going to be more of this like holistic view of like his entire journey. That just seems really cool, and I don't think any or very few content. Sorry, and I don't think there's enough content like that for people to enjoy, like, you know, looking back on the hero retrospectives.
Yeah, it's kind of like going to be on like the conclusion to kind of like a chapter of our channel, because like now that Zen's gone, like who am I going to play next? It's kind of.
I was just going to ask you that. Like, what do you do now that Zen's gone?
No. So I've been trying out Max, but there might be a video on that maybe around the time that this is being recorded. But I don't know if Max is necessarily going to be the swap. But yeah, I don't know if there's really a hero that kind of like speaks to me in the same way that Zen speaks to me.
Yeah, he is pretty unique. So I'd be interested to see what you liked about Zen and like what remnants of Zen you're going to look for in other heroes. If it's like the aggressive part, the mid-range part, or the broken cheap part, I don't know.
Yeah, definitely a lot of really kind of cool aspects to Zen.
Yeah.
And audience, if you haven't clicked it yet, go down to our description. There should be a link to Aurora's YouTube channel, Flesh and Bad, where you can take a look at all their content in the future.
Yeah.
Awesome. So I do want to ask, though, Joel, our last couple of episodes, we've been, Joel and Clark are going to London. Joel and Clark are going to be gone for a while. Well, you're back. Did you have a good time in London?
I'm back, and I did have a good time. I unfortunately got, I would say crushed, but I did not do well at the PT. I think there's a lot of prep that I was missing out on.
It's hard, yeah.
Not only is it hard, but I felt like the last 2 weeks prior, I was preparing for this big ass event for my like day job, and I was in Vegas for a week at this like week long trade show.
Yeah.
And I was also sick during that period of time, so I was just getting no rest and working the whole time. So I really wasn't able to do as much testing as I wanted to before an event like that. But I tried my best, and I also didn't let sort of losing get in the way of like my subsequent matches outside of like my first draft game. And then I just took the rest of the weekend to enjoy London and also enjoy the rest of the convention.
Nice.
So I just really tried to make like a really big mindset shift when I do poorly at competitive events, as you've seen. But overall, really fun time. And it was a privilege to not only travel internationally for the first time, but also go to a place where everybody speaks English for the most part.
Yeah, they just speak it funny.
Yeah. And then thirdly, going there with so many of my friends from SoCal. So it was like a big ass armory. It was a lot of fun.
Nice. I've never left the country before.
Really?
Yeah, fun fact about me. So I'm definitely looking for maybe one of these Pro Tour opportunities.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, get the chance to do it.
Hell
someday.
yeah. No, that'll be fun.
And I've like barely left the country. I've been on like some Mexican cruises with my family.
Yeah.
Where like we just kind of like barely get off the boat, do a little sightseeing, and then come back, you know? So
yeah. You dip your toes in Mexico.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And before we get into the episode breakdown, be sure to go to the comments or maybe jump in the Discord and let us know what's your favorite moment of Zen throughout his journey. Maybe it's playing as Zen, or maybe you got fragged by Zen. Either or, be sure to let us know in the comments.
So this episode is all about Zen because he recently hit Living Legend. Technically, we're recording it before he hits, but like, come on, like he's so close. He's gonna win some pro quests. So
yeah, he is the Living Legend point leader right now. He's sitting at 991 at the time of recording.
Yeah, so we're just gonna assume he got like a few points and he's hit there. And if you're listening to this, it's because he's gone. He's gone, and you don't have to worry about him again.
Yeah,
Your CC armories,
technicalities
CC
don't matter
tournaments.
here.
On Red Pitch, Aurora is going to go over Zen's competitive history. On Yellow Pitch, Joel's going to give us some space to just gush about our favorite things about the hero, since all three of us have played Zen a little bit. And on Blue Pitch, I'm going to give my custom design for a Zen replacement in the future. So let's start things off with Red Pitch. Aurora, what do you got for us?
Yeah, so I wanted to kind of talk a little bit today about Zen's competitive history because it's kind of like one of the things I've been compiling. At this point, I basically have like a 30-page manifesto on like the history of Zen and like the different like periods and card choices. So I kind of wanted to just give a little bit of room here today to kind of like talk through some of the competitive history.
I'm so ready to hear what you have.
It's kind of crazy that like MST was basically came out just under a year ago, and Zen's basically going to be gone,
Wow.
which is like kind of an insane timeline, right?
Oh, yeah.
What started out as probably one of the more powerful heroes in the game, and then like right now he's like kind of just a fair aggro deck, like aggro mid-range deck. Definitely, like it's still very powerful, but not like the hero that he kind of like once was.
Yeah, he's definitely a far cry from the broken aggro deck that he was on release, and now he's just like this perfect amalgamation of like mid-range and aggro in a really cool set with lots of interesting mechanics, lots of interesting design deck building choices. So
Yeah. So Zen was kind of like a really interesting hero on release because we saw all these like brand new mechanics at MST. Like we saw Chi for the first time, and everyone was like freaking out. Like, what is Chi? Like, what is this like blue pitch symbol? And then we eventually got like a little bit more revealed, and we figured out like there was a lot of synergy around like hand tigers, and obviously like the tiger combo cards that never really saw play in like Katsu, for instance, the Open Dynasty. And then like the big almost like crazy reveal is like Zen State token, right? Like making it on equipment is like pretty insane. So I think that a lot of the mechanics are like super flavorful, super cool, super interesting. Just like these very weird non-linear mechanics that all kind of like combine together to make this really interesting and also kind of broken hero. I kind of also want to talk about like the initial impressions of Zen. So like between you both, like when you were first looking at Zen spoilers compared to like New and Enigma, like what was that comparison like? Like, did you see like the broken like hero texts on New and like we're like, oh, this Zen guy's kind of like underwhelming?
I'm a pretty traditional assassin doomer, So I was
Yeah.
pretty upset that we were getting such a cracked assassin.
Yeah, Joel's been doing about Assassin since before New came out.
Yeah, yeah. I'm kind of a seasoned doomer, and then I was really down on Zen because it like I think I saw Chase the Tail as like okay, like every class has a 1-for-7 these days, but this was all before I got to really like play with the deck. So my initial impressions was pretty low on Zen. For
Yeah,
sure.
no one thought Zen was going to be that strong. It was kind of crazy because everyone was
Yeah.
really wrong.
Yeah, I think a lot of people compared Zen to Katsu, right? And like at the time, Katsu was like a pretty like a little bit fringe, but like still very like competitively viable like aggro deck where you just had a ton of on hits. You could like draw a bunch of cards with Mask of Momentum. You had like the Art of War Bond stuff. Like when you compare like Zen to Katsu, it seemed like Katsu just had a lot more going for him at the time. And like similar thing with like KO, right? Like KO was almost this like ProQuest menace. Like he wasn't really like a super like competitively like oppressive force, but at like the kind of like local level, like a lot of people compared Zen to KO, right? And like they saw in Zen like a clunkier version of KO with like a significantly like lower ceiling, right? And it's kind of wild like looking back on some like comments people made about like Zen, like the worst Katsu thing is like just kind of very funny in retrospect.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things too was like we're not really sure how often you're going to be transcending and how that affects you transcend even further after that, because all your chi after the first one is getting shuffled and you're like playing the same chi over and over again. And that just made the tutor ability from Katsu with the on hit like dwarfed in comparison.
And I think the Crouching Tigers had a bad reputation already. Like none of the Crouching Tiger cards that were spoiled seemed to be that insane, you know? But it turns out like fishing Chase the Tail like over and over again actually is pretty good.
Yeah, and it's kind of wild how like the Tigers barely mattered like what they were called, right? They're basically just attack actions that you create in hand to banish to Aurora, right?
Yeah. That's true.
Like I feel like the Crouching Tiger name was almost deceptive. Like you could have just had it not have a name or whatever. It's just a zero cost attack action you banish, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, let's kind of like talk, I guess, a little bit about like what people initially missed on Zen. And I think that we kind of like hit the nail on the head a little bit when we were talking earlier about like how easy was it to get chi, right? And a lot of people didn't really like run the math or like do kind of like the initial calculations because it wasn't even sure if at the time if you play all the chi in your deck or like do you just play like some of them, right? And like if you're running all 9 chi in the deck, it turns out that you have like what a 95% chance to draw a transcend card in the first 4 hands, which is like very, very consistent, actually.
Oh yeah, like if you see it any less than that, it's probably time to change your sleeves because it's very, very like that's the name of the game. Find my transcend card. I'm having middling turns until then, but once I do, it's pretty much that's when the real game starts. It feels like.
Yeah, for sure. And like another thing that people missed, well, I feel like a lot of people realize kind of like the Art of War, like Crouching Tiger synergy and how you can like just use Stride to like get a free Art of War, like. That was, I think, something people did see initially, but like Traverse was also like a card that people missed for like the first couple of weeks since he was like fully spoiled, right?
I remember thinking like, how could Traverse really be better than like Mask of the Pouncing Links? You know, because they do something very similar.
Yeah, and again with the like even if you're transcending and you're not finding the chi that you're putting back in deck, just Traverse just being the best card in your deck whenever you need it to be.
Yeah,
I think that was like really latent on people's minds.
For sure. I think that like 2 other things that I've kind of like identified of like what people missed are like the bonds. Obviously, like a lot of people just didn't think that you could run bonds outside of Katsu, which is in retrospect like obviously you can.
I actually remember it differently. Like I remember everyone trying to make bonds work, but they were assuming that you have to play Surging Strike. Because once people ditched Surging Strike and they just ran Descendant and Bonds of Ancestry, that's when it kind of like tore the deck open and they weren't being held back as much.
Yeah, and if I can piggyback off that point, I remember before anybody was on bonds at all, it was a We Make Best video that did like, I think 6 bonds or 9 bonds. He had a lot of Bonds of Ancestry in there. And from there, everyone was like, oh shit, that's what this deck is supposed to be. Just run every single copy of like the blues and reds of each and try to do that as many times as possible and play them off of each other. Because Katsu was already doing that. And the chi just making it so much easier on the Traverse. Yeah, it was just a disgusting development for sure.
Yeah, and I think like like you said, the kind of like core discovery there is that you can just play Descendant and Bonds by themselves, right?
Yeah.
Like and basically almost go pseudo infinite with like Descendant Bonds. You can just use Bonds to get Descendant, get Bonds, like that kind of thing. Was definitely quite crazy. And then the last thing I kind of want to mention here was just that a lot of people are focused like very heavily on like Tiger synergy cards. Like I think Roar the Tiger, Head Leads Tail. There are a bunch of like kind of middling cards like Predatory Streak that just like ended up kind of distracting from like what the deck was actually supposed to be doing at the time.
Yeah, it's me. I was trying so hard because I love Crouching Tigers, and I was like, I'm gonna play with as many as I can. I'm like, I should just be playing Bonds. This sucks.
So yeah, that kind of leads me into, I guess, the history of Zen. So we kind of talked about like the initial discovery period of Zen and like what the initial receptions were. But when people started actually like playing with the deck, I think the first event was at like a like UK Games Expo, and then there was like a like kind of like Tiger build at the time. But really, Nat season is like what kicked off a lot of like the Bonds of Ancestry builds. Like we saw 6 Bonds, we saw 9 Bonds, we saw like Surging Strike Zen. There were like tons of like weird variations of Zen. They're all basically just abusing Bonds of Ancestry with Art of War and that kind of thing.
Oh yeah, the Golden Age.
Yeah, the golden age of Zen, where he basically achieved, I think, roughly 45% of his LL points in the span of like a month and a half or like 2 months, something like that.
Yeah, he had a pretty meteoric rise, similar to KO. I think KO racked up like 500 points in the first PQ season, like after Heavy Hitters released. So naturally, when the newest, sexier aggro deck comes out and they do better numbers, like that's all anybody played. Even at Nats, people were still on decks like Katsu, decks like KO, because those were still really good aggro decks, but nothing was beating the full Bonds Art of War Zen. It was just running amok there.
Yeah, for sure. And I basically kind of count it among some of the strongest decks in the game's history. Like I think like pre-ban Zen was basically on the level of Starvo, Viscerai, Chain, like these very powerful decks that just like had very like heavy explosiveness to them. And yeah, I think he's kind of like that version of Zen, I think, is one of the strongest decks of all time in Fab.
Oh, absolutely. Because Starvo, Viscerai, and Chain, I don't think any of them had the opportunity, or I don't think any of them had quite the explosiveness of Zen with very little setup. Like after the first turn, if you get a Chi or a double transcend with Art of War, you're off to the races.
And we know that he could compete with Starvo, Chain, Viscerai because they had to ban Bonds in LL.
That's true.
There was that like month where Zen was winning all the formats ever.
Yeah. Yeah, Zen was a menace in Blitz and LL and CC. Like I don't know, Commoner probably not.
Yeah, probably Commoner too.
Well, he doesn't have Chase the Tail in Art of War, but
he has Tearing Shuko though.
That's true.
Don't sleep on Tearing Shuko.
I would not dare.
Yeah, there are games where I like played a Zen where you just like maybe on turn 1 you like Rising Sun like double transcend and then you put a Chi on the bottom and then you just like kill your opponent on turn 1 with like double Art of War and like block traverse strides. Like the games can end with like old Zen on like turn 1 or 2. Like it was crazy fast.
Yeah. Oh, and that was with Orion. Holy bro.
The Orion?
Yeah, Orion. Yeah, that card.
That card was disgusting.
It didn't even feel that bad, but like it was.
Yeah. Now that I don't have access to it, holy shit, why was that printed?
Yeah, and that was actually kind of like the period that I earned my first LL points on Zen. I was running like this disgusting 9 Bonds Zen deck that also ran Censor, that also ran Orihome.
Oh, Censor, that's crazy.
Yeah, Censor was a nasty tech choice at the time.
Oh, yeah.
Just insane mirror tech. So yeah, that kind of clues me into, I guess, the first Bonds ban, rather. And like the first Bonds ban, they banned blue and yellow Bonds, which was like, was that really that impactful? Like, I'd argue probably not. Like, what that ban did was it basically like lowered the ceiling of the deck, so like you couldn't kill people like with 40 damage turns as often. But what it really did was it raised the floor of the deck, because now you can have a bunch of more room for cards like Chase Aspect, like other cards that like were sometimes getting cut from other decks for consistency reasons.
Yeah.
But now you're just running these like very efficient, just like combo cards that you can just play even if you don't have like the full traverse chase stuff.
Yeah. Oh no, I have 6 extra slots. I guess I put in good combo cards? Question mark.
Yeah, and it's surprising like how much that raised like the floor of the deck, right?
Yeah. If anything, it was like eliminating the bad cards so you can make room for more. And so it's like, okay, you made a more consistent deck, a more resilient deck. So yeah, I'm sort of in the same house. Like I don't think it really changed that much, to be honest.
Yeah, and I think I remember a lot of people being kind of like disappointed with the ban because he was still just like the best deck by like a pretty decent margin.
Yeah.
It hurt Katsu.
Yeah,
Katsu. We should really be calling that the Katsu ban number 1.
Yeah, that's honestly Katsu ban number 1. And I guess that also maybe brings me to kind of like the second ban, right? So we saw the second ban, which banned stuff from like a lot of different decks, right? So basically brought the overall power level of the game like way down, which I think was honestly like a very good decision.
When you're talking about the book burning, where we lost all Bonds of Ancestry, Orion of Mystic Tenants, Art of War.
Yeah, we basically any card that really abuses the offensive overlap of aggro decks.
Right, exactly. And my partner Tegan is still a little bit salty about the Toned Wraither when banned in particular. They were a Kano enjoyer at the point.
Yeah. But I was really happy with that ban because back when Lexi and Shane were using Art of War were moments where I was like, this card needs to be banned. Like, it's being used in the most aggressive decks in the format. A lot of the downsides to Art of War are just fake when you have no intention of blocking anyways. So to me, it was like a few sets too late. I think the game looks a lot different if it's banned early on and we get closer to this Fab 3.0 that we're entering now. And I don't know. That's just sort of my hot take, is that it should have been banned, like probably in Monarch.
Yeah, I think that's probably very valid. So yeah, next I want to talk about Fair Zen, which is kind of like after that basically that book burning, right? We saw like I think that book ban basically paved the way for kind of like the release of Rosetta, right? So they wanted to kind of like make room for all these new heroes, which maybe wouldn't be able to compete with like the Art of War and like the tomes and stuff. Yeah, we saw basically the kind of almost like, I want to say this is maybe my golden age of Zen, right? Where it's like a much more fair aggro deck, right? You're still doing like the Broken Transcend stuff, but you're also running like some very interesting kind of tech cards at this point. So I think one of the cards that was still legal after the bans was High Octane at the time, right?
Yeah, absurd.
And with Dio at the time, the release of the Army deck, she got like Cerebellum Processor, a bunch of like shiny new tools, right? And one of like the kind of sideboard choices that was adopted at the time was Wax On, Wax Off, which is a card that was never like really seriously considered up until this point. Not like realistically, right? Like people were running it in like meme decks or whatever, but like actually seeing competitive level play of like Wax On, Wax Off, and it was good. It was like a really good tech card at the time.
Yeah, because there was no way after the bans you were erasing Dio, so you might as well give your best chance to fatigue them. And the Zen State token basically taking 1 damage off of each of the pistol shots after a really big high octane turn. Man, that was probably the most fun I had with Fab while playing Zen, other than like, killing your opponent turn 1. But being able to use Zen State tokens, which was like just so unbelievably unplayable before then, was a really fun time for sure.
Even against Viserai, like, which was also a monster at the time, being able to protect yourself from all rune chants for 1 or 2 effective turns was really crazy. And like Clark, our other host, who unfortunately isn't here today, he was a Viserai main at the time, and we had some really fun games where he would like play around my Zen states by temporarily pitch stacking until my Zen state goes away, which was something that Viserai was able to do. And just the skill testing of that matchup was like really fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Wax On, Wax Off stuff ended up being really good to like aggro Viserai, but what Viserais could also pivot to at the time was like stacking rune chants and just waiting out. Like, because if you make a bunch of rune chants, you don't actually get, like, you make a bunch of rune chants attack, you don't actually get the opportunity to like go to reactions before you take all that rune chant damage.
Right. Yeah.
So if they hit you with like a Knife Blade, the Wax On, Wax Off stuff loses a bit of value.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think for the most part, this is kind of where Zen has ended up. But I do think there are like a couple other periods that I would maybe identify. So there was a very brief period during Hunted release where Needle Zen was like an actual deck. And that deck was kind of crazy. So you basically ran Zephyr Needle with like Up Sticks and Run, which was a card that basically like made you like keep Zephyr Needle around. And I think that a lot of people gravitated towards Ira initially for running like the Up Sticks deck because you can just like use an Ira. Ira already has that buff on her. But like Zen also just has a ton of explosive potential with him as well. So you could actually kind of run it in Zen still. And it was kind of good at the time. I think a lot of people like Daniel Rakowski from the Runaways were testing it, as well as Taylor Crawford, who I ran into on Talishar one day, was testing that as well.
Yeah, I do remember that period of time where everyone was like kind of losing their mind over how powerful Zephyr Needle was with the new dagger support. Yeah, and it felt like Zen was also on this like full circle journey because Evan Herndon, who was the Nats winner of 2024, also piloted Zen with Art of War, all the good stuff, but was using Zephyr Needles.
Yeah, and I think the Needles kind of presents an ultimatum, right? You basically give me a card or you take 2 damage, and then you're going to take 2 damage in the future at some point, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So it's basically kind of like a damned if you do, damned if you don't kind of situation. But not with Upsticks in particular. Upsticks just made it so that you're damned either way, right? Yeah, so, and then I guess the kind of last period of Zen's history here is kind of like the period we're in now, which is like, are we in a period where Zen is like kind of fallen off a little bit? Like, I'd argue that as the Hunted meta has kind of like gone on, Zen is like definitely still like a viable hero, but like when you compare him to like decks like Aurora, right, where we got a bunch of new tools with the Armory deck and stuff, and she has like a very, very consistent floor, Zen's floor is like significantly worse, and you can like sometimes like I feel like he kind of struggles into like certain matchups where like you don't necessarily struggle as like Aurora or Enigma. Like I don't think he's necessarily like in the best decks right now.
I think it's really telling that you have this aggro deck, Zen, that once he got a few pieces taken away, he replaced it with like defense reactions. Like it's not very common for an aggro deck to do that, where they just put in some more defensive tools in order to buy time, because that's what he has to do, right? If he's not going to be the premier aggro deck, he's going to be a mid-range deck. And I don't know, again, it might be a piloting issue. I'm not going to pretend like I'm that good of a pilot on Zen, but there's a lot of different things he's trying to juggle just to make his aggressive turns work. So to throw D-reacts in on top of that, it can make it really clunky. It's hard to stay at the top of the meta like that, you know?
For sure.
Yeah, but that's kind of like my brief overview of kind of like the history of Zen. I'm also working on, like I mentioned kind of in the intro, like a full length history on Zen. So it's going to go into like a lot more detail, probably going to be at least an hour or 2, maybe. Will kind of depend. But yeah, if you're interested in kind of listening to me rant more about some of like the different periods in Zen's history and also like the different decks, yeah, that will be a video for you to look out for.
Oh yeah, and once that video is up, we'll definitely be including it in the description and wherever else we can post it, because I'm excited to see it as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that breakdown, Aurora. I think we're going to move on to Yellow Pitch. And Joel, I think you're going to lead us off, giving us some time to just gush about our favorite hero, right?
Yeah, Clark got his moment, and now it's time for me. Alrighty, so much like Aurora, I was drawn to Zen pretty early on. I think my first impression of him was that he was very bad. Also, I assumed that Fuzzy would be on him because he's a ninja main.
It's a good assumption.
Yeah, and I don't really like playing the same decks as my friends because I hate mirror matches.
And I'm the worst at that. I always will like tell people, hey, I'm going to play this hero in this new set, and I never do.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, I really, really think I'm going to be playing Gravy Bones.
Sure, buddy, sure.
I swear.
So I want to go over a little bit about what I like and dislike in Ninja, because I'm not usually a Ninja player. Typically, I stay with like Warrior, Brute, stuff like that. Things that we'll never see the Living Legend system. And back when I first started playing Flesh and Blood, I really liked the State of Katsu, because it was this sort of like pitch a 0-cost blue, play Kadachi twice, and then swing a 1 for 5.
Hell yeah.
And there was like sort of this control version of Katsu, very reminiscent of like Ira and Blitz or whatever. And it was just playing like a lot of flick flacks and being very defensive and like choosing when to like really extend as an aggressive turn. And that's sort of what you do in Warrior, but like much worse and with weapons. So when I saw Zen, I thought he was going to be pretty bad, and quickly learned that he was going to be the best deck in the format, which is typically what I don't like, is just I'm going to lay my cards out in a random order and then kill you. But Ninja has this finesse to it, especially if you're playing Katsu or Zen, no offense to the Draconic lovers. Just combo in itself is a very unique mechanic and a very interesting mechanic to play with, both aggressively and defensively. And so that's what really drove me to try out Zen. One reason why Zen was very special to me is a while ago, like especially in heavy hitters, I was really frustrated with myself in terms of my competitive performance, because I'm a very competitive person, and that didn't always translate into how I played Flesh and Blood, because I like bad heroes typically. And so as part of my, I guess, openness to play the meta deck, I picked Zen because I wanted to give myself the best shot for the year 2024. A lot of the times I have this like unnecessary pressure on myself to do well in every season. So I was like, if I'm going to invest all this time, I might as well do it on a good hero.
Zen's a good hero to do that with.
Yeah. Also, like I mentioned in Aurora's pitch, I really like Crouching Tigers. Ever since I saw the art in Dynasty, I fell in love immediately. And while I didn't really gravitate towards the Katsu version of things, I knew that eventually when there was a Crouching Tiger focused ninja, I was just going to hop right on. Because the Marvel art is just gorgeous. So being able to look at that multiple times a game was pretty rewarding.
Yeah, I kind of feel very similarly about Zen. So at the time, Zen was the first ProQuest Plus I think I've ever won. I think won one of my first RTNs recently as well.
Nice.
So I've got a lot of like competitive like experience under my belt. A couple top eights, and I think I met you. I think I met Fuzzy at AG maybe.
At the Battlehard in San Diego.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that's the one I did not go to.
Yeah, I top aided that one as well. I top aided recent like Portland Battle Hardened, and then also top aided like a minor ProQuest recently. But yeah, I feel like I attribute a lot of my competitive success to just grinding Zen specifically.
Yeah,
it's a good hero for it. You know, there's no shame in like taking a hero that's really strong and running them. You know,
you've said a lot on this podcast. Fuzzy is like, sometimes you can use variants to your advantage. Like you go in knowing that you have a varianced aggro hero, and that can be good to, play, give yourself the best chance of winning, but also learn that skill expression to sort of make those minute changes in either your deck construction or maybe how you value certain cards. And that is what can make aggro decks fun.
Oh, yeah. And I think one of the special things about, especially like one of my earlier ProQuest victories was just like, I was playing like one of the most busted decks in Flesh and Blood's history at the time, right? Like I was running 9 Bonds of Ancestry. I was running Shifting Winds of the Mystic Beast.
Yeah.
I was running a bunch of like stupidly cool cards that like now don't really see play, but it's like a really unique period of history that I feel like I was able to kind of contribute to.
Yeah, that's I like that you said that, because I felt the same way about Oldhim. I never played him when he had Pulse of Eisenloft or Winter's Wail. When I picked him up, he had none of those tools, and so I kind of felt like, as I enjoyed the hero, I missed out on a lot of like the power of Oldhim and like what made him so fun and unique. And so being able to experience that with Zen was a treat for sure. I get it now.
I'm so glad you guys brought it up that way. I need to make sure I get on the next broken hero early so I can experience it at like full power.
Yeah, it's fun. Like, you want to see your hero live out its power fantasy. It's always fun in card games. That's why we play them. And my rap sheet with Zen might not be as impressive as Aurora's, but I'm going to go over it anyways, because it's some of my highest successes in Flesh and Blood so far. I didn't qualify for Nats with Zen, because obviously he wasn't out, but I played at Nats.
Like the 2024 Nats.
Yeah, 2024 Nats in Minneapolis. I went with my buddy Fuzzy. And that was a lot of fun. I didn't do well in the draft per se, but in CC, I was winning pretty early on. I was just kind of crushing everybody, mostly because it was a good hero. But
Weren't you undefeated in day one of Nats?
I was 6-1 in day one of Nats. And again, gave myself the best opportunity with Zen. I was just having a lot of fun there. I ended up performing pretty badly in day 2, but also, it was just a lot of bad luck. Like, I remember my first my first CC match after the second round of draft, I still had a shot at top 8 or like, getting in top 64. And I get up against Michael Hamilton on Enigma, and my deck just explodes on itself. I don't transcend for the first 4 turns, and I had to do it defensively. And I played Ancestral Harmony twice, banishing
Art of War, right?
banishing Art of War, and I played Art of War, drawing into combo cards that don't have Go again, and it was just bad. And he was also breaking pretty hard in the first part of that game, and still couldn't get it together.
Damn.
And from there, my Nats run ended. But I didn't give up on Zen, even past his bans. I think after both of his bans is where I started seeing my success. I won a PQ that following season that got me my invite to London, so that was cool. And in the most recent RTN season, I also played Zen and won my second RTN. So I just felt like I was getting to this state of mastery with Zen. Like I was like exactly where I wanted him to be. I could play defensive. I could be aggressive when I wanted to. And so I don't have, any top 64s or top 8s at like large events to speak of, but he was the reason why I got to be at London, and he was the reason why I'll be at Nats later this year. So I have a lot of my success thanks to Zen, much like yourself, Aurora.
Aw.
But all that being said, I think the one thing that I wish was handled a little bit differently with, I think, Misfail in general, but specifically Zen, is there's a lack of specializations for each of the heroes. Like, obviously, you have these sacred arts, which can only be used by these certain heroes, but...
Yeah, they're like fake specializations.
Yeah, they're fakealizations. And to me, that's where a lot of the flavor and the identity of these heroes comes by. I don't know if it was like they as in LSS knew that these heroes were going to be leaving within a year, so like printing specializations wouldn't matter as much, or maybe the design was siloed enough to where each of these cards are like Chase the Tail feels also like a Zen specialization because no other hero can really use it to great effect other than maybe Ira, but that's you have to go through a lot of work in order to use it in that deck. Maybe if there's more specializations, it moves Zen further away from Bonds in the very beginning and sort of silos him a little bit more to this other power fantasy outside of like Katsu stuff. So that's really the only thing that I think could have been designed a little bit more future-proofed, I guess, because that would mean I get to play him longer. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think you kind of touched on it a little bit, but like Zen, I think that the release of Zen I don't think it was super problematic in the way he was designed, but he kind of exposed a lot of potential like flaws with the game at the time, right? So like I think that he wasn't necessarily like the way that I think that LSS was playing him, I don't think he was a super problematic deck, but like the way that he kind of exposed like the problem with Art of War and card advantage and like just that kind of offensive overlap, I think that's kind of almost for the better that we got that out of the way early,
for
at
sure.
least in my opinion.
Yeah.
But like it definitely, I think there was a little bit of like a pain period where that stuff was legal, and unfortunately it just led to a lot of like the variance that he probably kind of experienced over your course playing Zen.
Yeah. That is true. Like, there's something to be said about Zen, being a really good catalyst for the game because it gave LSS the opportunity to correct a really bad game state and also protect the release of Rosetta and also the release of the Hunted, theoretically. So, probably a net good, but it's definitely something that I wish I could live out. Maybe in another universe I'm still playing Zen and he's like balanced and cool and has a specialization.
It is kind of funny how like I think a lot of people, like people who never played the hero, are going to be looking back at like good riddance Zen,
Yeah.
Which is a shame because he's pretty cool.
Yeah, and I've heard from a lot of our locals that like, oh man, I wish, Art of War was banned earlier because then Zen would be at like 500 points and he would be fair and balanced. And that's something I would want to see too. And I hope a lot of people remember Zen being balanced and good for the game and just a unique hero rather than the dumpster fire that he was early on.
Yeah, and I feel like every day I kind of still am discovering new like interactions with Zen. Like it feels like I'm still not fully like I guess it feels like there's still a lot more to the hero to be explored. And I kind of would be interested to see him like live through another set, but unfortunately, like you just won't get the opportunity to see him like what is he going to look like with high seas, right? Like
Right.
we will never know.
Yeah, and I imagine that's how a lot of people feel with like other broken heroes, like maybe Dromai. Oh, what, you know, how would she interact with XYZ meta? And of course, that's going to be like the same for every hero, with minor variations. But that's definitely something that I'm going to be, you know, a little melancholy about. Is like, you know, how he would react with this meta, or if he was still here, how he would deal with this particular problematic hero, whatever.
While we're talking about our favorite things about the hero, I've always loved how I think Zen embodies the Mystic class, I think a little bit better than the other Mystic heroes. Like when you think of Chi as a mechanic, Chi is this like resource card that turns into this like super special mystical energy, and then it goes back into your deck. And the problem, quote unquote, maybe not problem's the right word, the supposed weakness for all mystics is that they're running these non-blocks that are being recurred back into their deck. So they get fatigued faster because they have to run these non-blocks. They're always pitching them back in. And late game, they're going to have so many of these non-blocks that they run the risk of just taking damage and dying, you know? Like, that's how a lot of games against new end, right?
Yeah.
Like, if you're able to grind them out until the end, they have non-blocks, and you're able to, like, kill them. And I think Zen embodied that extra because he's also taking out attacks out of his deck in order to fuel his turns.
Yeah.
And so you're taking attacks out, you're putting non-blocks in, and you're going to get fatigued a little bit faster as your hero is literally turning into a being of pure mystic spiritual energy. And I just always loved that flavor.
Yeah.
You know?
That is cool. And then you play things like Cosmic Awakening. Like
Yeah. Now that you've turned into this pure mystic energy, you're able to like use your enlightened mind and just overpower your opponent completely.
Just laser beam.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that actually kind of brings me to one of the things I really loved about Zen, which is just deck manipulation in general, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
One thing you can do as Zen, right, is you have like 3 chi at the bottom of your deck because you just like triple transcended or whatever. It's probably not even good, but like let's say you have 3 chi that you know are at the bottom of the deck. You block with Traverse, you get to shuffle, right, and then you have 3 chi that are now live in your deck somewhere.
Yeah.
Could still be at the bottom, but very likely that somewhere else, right?
Or even just using your hero ability, right? Like New and Enigma, sure, they can shuffle their deck of chi if they use Traverse. But Zen being able to consistently shuffle means that instead of having like this pitch deck where you have like all your chi at the bottom, you are constantly having this ratio that you're working with. You're working with a percentage in your deck more than you're working with a list of cards, you know?
Yeah. And Aurora, you might already know this because you're a Zen aficionado, but I remember one of the devs saying that the reason why Stir the Pot came about was because in testing, they were not transcending as much or using the same chi as much as Zen was in testing. So they were like, this is bullshit. I want a card that just shuffles everything the way Zen does, because Zen's like constantly transcending with the same cards. So I just thought that was really interesting because Zen had more mechanics in his playstyle or in his design that just changed not only how the rest of the cards are designed, but also what you have to think about in terms of giving support for Ninja or like tempering what you can use with Zen. Because it's just I'll use it again. He's a catalyst.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I think it's really interesting because you can also think of some of the Transcend cards as like a drawback. So like, what if you're like pitch stacking codexes or whatever, and then you have to shuffle to like mass banish, right? Like it's kind of cool, like with like drop in the ocean, and like there's a lot of like drawbacks to actually like transcending, especially with like the targeted transcend cards. Like it's not just like this straightforward thing, which I kind of like.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the most or one of the more fun parts about Zen was, okay, I've seen this many transcend cards and a couple of them target cards, so I need to put like a blue attack in my arsenal versus like a wind chakra because my chances of seeing a transcend card that doesn't work with it is higher or whatever, you know, things like that. And that's what was a lot of fun about playing with Zen, because the way that you transcend is there's just a bit more finesse to it than I think with the other heroes.
Yeah, and kind of speaking on drawbacks, there's also the hidden drawback of like if you sink below or you strike a crouching tiger, right? And then you have a chance of like just redrawing into complete death, not even like a chi. I've always kind of found that risk reward kind of fun.
Yeah, that's true. I didn't always play with the E-Strike because I always thought like I don't want to put a tiger in my deck, but like also just that emergency button, like I need to just slam damage or maybe draw a card and reset my arsenal.
I always love having options like that, especially if my hero's not at the top of the meta. Like if I'm going against Aurora, I'm fucking already losing. I might as well put dumb cards in my deck if it's going to give me an extra card draw or an extra +2 damage, God forbid. Like, it's nice to have that option.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, Crouching Tiger in your deck isn't real. It can't hurt you.
Exactly. I'm not going to draw that shit.
I'm dying before then. It don't matter.
I think my last thought for this pitch, my one big regret with Zen is no matter how many times I ran Cosmic Awakening, I've never cast that card in a game of Classic Constructed. And do you know how badly I want to, Joel? Joel kept telling me Cosmic Awakening is real. Cosmic Awakening is really good. You can use it to like get tempo back, even in like aggro mid-range matchups. I'm like, okay, I'm convinced. I want to run Cosmic Awakening. All these lists online, they're running Cosmic Awakening. But then I would draw it with reds and I'm going to pitch it away. Or I would like transcend and I would just like use Zen's hero ability. It could be a skill issue because it could have been that I would just like had my blinders on.
No, you're fine.
It's surprisingly hard to get a Cosmic off. Like, it's not super trivial.
I would say it's very difficult. Impossible even. So I kind of just wish I could have had like one more tournament where I could have like ran it.
Yeah.
I ran 3 copies at the last AGE. It didn't happen.
That's crazy. You didn't get. I feel like I cast it like almost every game.
No, you're not.
I swear to God. I swear to God. I think the one time I didn't cast it like at all in a tournament was my PQ that I won because like they got banished or I had a better play with the pitch that came out of Cosmic Awakening, but I played that card so many times, dude. I don't.
It might be I don't arsenal my cheat cards enough. Because
arsenal your cheat cards?
My transcend cards.
Oh.
You know, like if you arsenal transcend card, I bet it gets a lot easier.
Yeah.
But I think I probably have a tendency to arsenal red attacks in order to light them up later. That might have been my problem.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's my biggest regret.
That's okay. You can do it in Living Legend now.
Sure. Yep, Living Legend. That's a format that I play.
It's so disappointing they only have one bond.
I know. Let me do my broken thing. What the hell?
Yeah.
Aurora, any last closing thoughts? I'm going to close up the pitch.
I think that's pretty much it for me.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, listeners, for sitting through my gush session. I really like Zen, if you couldn't tell. So do the rest of the hosts with me today. But I think I want to see what the future holds for Zen 2.0, Electric Boogaloo, Crouching Tiger to the second power. And I think Fuzzy's going to take over that one. What do you got for us?
All right. For Blue Pitch, I was given the privilege and responsibility of doing a custom card design for a new Zen hero, as is tradition on our podcast. Because when a hero rotates out, we want to know what could the future of that hero entail. Because LSS has this soft promise that anytime a hero rotates out of the format, all the cards that were viable for that hero will re-enter the format someday. So therefore, your cards are not worthless. Please still continue to buy our trading cards.
Yes.
Yes.
I'm waiting.
So I've named my hero Zen, Roaring from Within.
Love it.
For a Mystic hero, you kind of need to have a chi ability. I think it'd be really whack if they came out with another Mystic hero and the hero ability wasn't like some action or instant that costs 3 resources, right?
Yeah.
So my Zen, who has 4 intellect and 40 health, like a normal hero,
Nice.
has instant, pay 3 chi resources, reveal the top 4 cards of your deck. For each Crouching Tiger you reveal this way, create a Tiger's Claw token, then put the cards back on the top of your deck in any order. Then create a Crouching Tiger in your hand. So one cool thing that Mystic Ninja has delved into that regular Ninja has not is not just playing with Crouching Tigers, but putting them in weird places.
Yeah.
Tigers in your hand, potentially tigers in your deck. And that's something I wanted to lean on more with this design. And I also liked this deck manipulation that Aurora was talking about a little bit before, where when things are in your deck, they can give you like extra benefits. So if we can get Crouching Tigers in our deck by maybe like putting them in the bottom with Sink Below or with Enlightened Strike, once they get to the top of the deck, we can get extra powers that come from just revealing them and having them in there. And showing our opponent how cool we are because we're putting these useless cards in our deck, but then getting the benefit later. So with this hero, And oftentimes when LSS returns to a class hero talent, they print extra support with it, right? I'm imagining this hero would be printed with some support that allows you to put Crouching Tigers into your deck in a way that is a little bit easier than we already have. I have one card coming up that does that, so I just want you to have that context that like getting tigers near the top of your deck is something that you're going to be doing semi-regularly with this hero. Maybe it's part of your payoff for combo effects. I also need to tell you what a Tiger's Claw token does, because that is the only benefit you're getting from this hero ability, other than the extra Crouching Tiger in hand. Do you guys have any questions before I talk about the Tiger's Claw?
Well, I noticed that on the first activation, this isn't doing like pretty much anything other than giving you like deck information as well as creating a Crouching Tiger in your hand. I thought that was interesting.
And I want that deck information to be relevant, right? Like knowing what's on the top of your deck, even if you're revealing it to your opponent, I think that tells us a lot in Ninja, especially with like Zen Ninja, because then I know like what's the best card to arsenal versus what's the card to get out of my hand and play, you know? Like having that flexibility of like knowing what you're about to draw, I think is actually pretty real and is some value that you're getting out of this hero ability. But I agree that paying an entire chi resource just to look at the top of your deck probably isn't very strong.
Well, I think it addresses a very real concern that a lot of people had with Zen initially, which was, why does every chi mean you get to grab the best card in your deck whenever you want it? And this not only gives you a benefit, and I'm sure the benefit will be further explained as you get to the other cards, but already taking away that like instant go get whatever card you need, I think it's a good change for sure.
Yeah, I do like the fact that you're not just like tutoring for chase aspect every turn, right? Like you're having to kind of work for it a little bit, which I think is pretty reasonable given the power level of chase aspect. Like one of the better kind of combos in the game.
Yeah, and also like the synergies that you're going to get with like levels of enlightenment draws or ancestral empowerment banishes off the top. I think giving an entire card to that effect is a really good pivot away from what Zen used to be, and also gives you a really good reward that isn't obvious when you look at this hero ability.
Yeah, and being able to stack the deck, like you're seeing, you said that really quickly. I just want to spend a little bit more time on it.
Sure.
Being able to stack the top of your deck without shuffling, and then playing cards like Ancestral Empowerment to draw and knowing what you're going to draw, or cards like Take the Tempo, you banish the top card of your deck. If it's an attack action, you get to play it in your next turn, and knowing what's on the top of your deck makes that a lot more powerful of an effect. Let me tell you about the Tiger's Claw token, which you get to make one Tiger's Claw for every Crouching Tiger that you revealed on the top. The Tiger's Claw is an instant that you can destroy, kind of like a fealty token, and it gives your next Crouching Tiger that you play the name of your choice and +1 power.
Ooh, okay, I see the synergy.
So
nice. And do you get to keep these kind of around as well?
there's nothing that destroys the Tiger's Claw, unlike fealty, right? Which you kind of have to use the fealty or make more of them. Like you have to do something to keep fealty around. This one, I'm imagining like once you have them, you can bank them up. Maybe it's a little unhealthy. Like I guess you could like keep putting tigers in your deck and then make or make 20 of these tokens.
Yeah,
because maybe I had a clause that said like your next Crouching Tiger that's not affected by Tiger's Claw, so you can't just use 20 of these on the same tiger or something. I don't know. But the main way that you would use this is you can rename a Crouching Tiger, just like our favorite mascot of the pod, Schwoomb.
Schwoom. Love Schwoom.
Swoon.
Or and giving them 1 power means that they're probably just coming in for 1. That's hard to block, you know? Are they going to give resources in order to stop that 1 from coming in? So it gives you a little bit of offensive power that I would even say is a little bit evasive, and it turns on any of the combo cards that you have in your deck. So you can run like Pounding Gale, which is just a 1 for 5, but if you had the Tiger's Claw to boost it up and a tiger in hand, then maybe it's a 1 for 5 that does double damage, you know?
You have
Lots of potential there.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's also potential synergy with like Flusterfist, right? If you have like getting a bunch of tigers somehow, like maybe off like a Sacred Art or whatever, and then you eventually just like name the last one, open the center, right? And then you end on a Fluster, Salt the Wound. It's
Yeah,
pretty spicy.
that's so good.
Easy.
And also with Winds of Eternity, you get to shuffle all these Crouching Tigers back in.
Which for this hero would be cool.
Yeah, then you're like, okay, let's load them back up, and we'll do it again.
How fun would that be, right? Like you reveal the top 4 cards of your deck is all Crouching Tigers, and you get like 4 of these Tiger Claws.
I think with this, you could potentially beat Illusionist in terms of most expensive deck, because you just get like
The Marvel Crouching Tigers.
60 Marvel Crouching Tigers for your deck.
So like those are the sort of silly shenanigans I think Zen could have been running that I wanted to lean into for this design.
Yeah.
And I think Schwoomp is a good card, being able to rename your Crouching Tigers, Shifting Winds of the Mystic Beast for the uninformed, and being able to rename Crouching Tigers was like a really cool mechanic that actually like made its way into some lists because they wanted to run bonds as hard and as fucking possible, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And being able to like put Schwoomp in the hero ability in a way, I think makes it a lot more viable of a strategy, a lot easier to build around, and I think it like can lead to some really interesting deck construction. Zen is basically, Zen Roaring from Within is blowing the card pool wide open by allowing you to run like really any combo card that you want.
And one thing I also like about Tiger's Claw is the +1 power that it gives to Crouching Tigers, because when Zen returns, he's not going to be returning with Tiger Taming Kakara, which is a way for you to buff your Tigers outside of Tiger Stripe Shuko or Chase the Tail. So this is going to make each of your Crouching Tigers and redundant Crouching Tigers a lot better, not only for the naming aspect, but also just for the power itself.
And I don't have a weapon for this hero design today prepared. Maybe I'll give you guys an opportunity to tell me what you think the weapon would look like in a second. But I do have one card that I would go in the main deck that I designed to go with this hero, because this hero does really want Crouching Tigers in the deck, you know? And that's not something that's very easy right now. Right now, Mystic Ninja is focusing on Tigers to hand. So I wanted to design at least one card to make it easier. I'm imagining there'd be other effects similar to this one. But I called this card Feed the Beast. It's a yellow pitch block card that blocks for 3, so it doesn't have a cost and it doesn't have a power. And I gave it Unity. When this defends with a combo card, create a Crouching Tiger on the top of your deck and a Ponder token.
That's so cool.
At face value, just to kind of visualize this card, you block with this and a combo card, a Tiger gets created on the top of your deck, and then the Ponder token that it makes, assuming you don't reorder your deck, that Ponder token is going to draw you a Crouching Tiger that you will assumedly want to arsenal on your next turn. So this card kind of incentivizes you to clear out your arsenal, and it also sets up a Crouching Tiger for the next turn, which honestly is, at face value, again, not very strong. It requires synergy in order to actually get good value out of it, which is why I thought it was pretty fair that it's a 3-block. You know, a 3-block card can pretty easily be slotted into lists, right?
Yeah.
Do you want to say something, Aurora?
Oh, yeah. I wanted to also add that I thought this card was really sick because it synergizes with one of my favorite cards, which is Gore Belching, which is a card that does not see play anywhere currently, but I think it would be really cool for that deck or for that card rather, to see play at some point in the future.
Yeah, you put that 0/0 on the top of your deck, Gore Belching reveals it, and it comes in 0 for 7. Gore Belching, baby.
And then you draw it off the Ponder token. Oh, yeah, okay.
Or even the more mainstream Ravenous Rabble. It would be a 0 for 5 go again, revealing the Crouching Tiger off the top.
Yeah. We're Gore Belching gamers in this household.
Sorry, no Ravenous Rabbles here, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Gore Belching is also sick because it banishes, so you get a random card off the Ponder token. Like, you're not guaranteed to draw into the Ponder token.
Oh, yeah, I love that. Cool. Yeah, I'm excited.
So I also like the vast number of play lines that gets open up if you use this in conjunction with your hero ability. You load it on the top of your deck, you use the hero ability to reveal the top 4, including that Crouching Tiger you just put there. You get the Tiger's Claw token from the hero ability, but then you can reorder the deck. If you want to put something else on top, so you can use the Ponder token a different way, you can do that. If you want to keep the Crouching Tiger on top to banish off a Gore Belching, you can do that too, but you get the Tiger Claw either way. And yeah, that's kind of what I'm going for this design. Mystic Ninja, in this envisioning of Mystic Ninja, we're putting Tigers on the top of our deck and then getting benefits from it, and then those benefits are going to outweigh the drawback of putting, shitty cards on the top of our deck. I was definitely inspired a little bit by Territorial Domain, which is one of those really cool Majestics that didn't quite see a lot of play, because it was like, if you created a Crouching Tiger this turn, then it blocks for 5 as a blue, right?
Yeah.
It's really good if you make that Tiger, but when are you making Tigers on your opponent's turn? So
Believe me, I've tried.
So I wanted to make a design that allows Zen to play that defensive mid-range style, as well as this really cool combo style, hopefully at the same time. That's another thing, like, how can you play mid-range combo? You kind of need to have these fake Crouching Tigers making names just in the middle of the chain if you want to play these really cool combo turn unders, right?
Yeah, one thing that I was trying really hard to experiment with in late stage Zen was trying to use other combo lines like the head jab line or the leg tap line. Like those are lines that I started the game with and was really interested in. But the only thing that's really been built upon was the surging strike line, obviously with Katsu and then with Bonds and Descending Gust Wave. But I think with this, it just makes me excited for basically any new combo card that comes out or combo line that gets support, because you can just slot it in here and he can still be this Crouching Tiger deck, but also like you splice in whatever is good for the meta. 0 for 4s, 1 for 5s, 2 for 6s, whatever.
So those are the cards that I've designed: a hero, a token, and a main deck card. Is there anything else that you guys think you would add if you were going to help me flesh out this design a little bit? I know I didn't come up with like a weapon or any equipment.
Yeah, so I was actually kind of thinking, like, Traverse is obviously like one of the strongest cards in the game, like by bar none. Like just getting the ability to block 2 and draw a card is really interesting. I think it would be kind of cool if they printed like a helmet for Zen that was just like block 2 and shuffle or something like that. And there's like some payoff to wanting to like shuffle your deck, just because like the shuffle part is like super, super strong on Traverse. And you're also getting an additional card out of it. Like, why not just make it block 2 shuffle? Like, I think there's potentially a world where that's possible as like a card design, and it's actually maybe even good.
For sure.
Yeah, I think one thing that was really missing for me in Zen was having really good chi outlets outside of your hero ability. If you look at Nu, she has the Mask of Recurring Nightmares, so that every chi you play, even if you don't get value off of her hero ability, which is basically not a hero ability against a lot of decks. So being able to dump that into Mask of Recurring Nightmares and trading 1-for-1 card from your opponent is extremely strong. If I were to redesign Zen, I think I would put the chi outlet in the weapon.
I wonder if there's like a modal way you can do it. Like maybe if you pitch a chi card to this, like, or like attack for 3, something. If you pitch a chi, it gets like buffed or something like that.
Yeah. Like the Shwoom text, right? Shwoom.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I would, you might have seen it on some other cards, like Tearing Shuko basically has like brass knuckles but with blades. So maybe Zen has 2 brass knuckle dagger looking things that get bonuses off of, or that have combo themselves, or maybe like this conditional chi pitch where you give it like +2 and go again, or buffs your next Crouching Tiger.
That is so funny that Joel, reformed Leviah main, just wants to run Mandible Claws, but for Ninja.
Oh my god. Listeners, that's not... Listen.
Of course, Joel.
Oh my god, I know. Clark's going to be so upset with me.
Yeah, tell us about your Mandible Claw Mystic Ninja design, Joel. I'm here and I'm listening.
That was it. That's all I had to say.
So one also thick card that I kind of miss that I saw in some of like the very earliest Zen list was Ornate Tessin, which was a card that I think you had to bottom a card first and then you draw a random card from your deck. So if you like bottom a tiger, it was like, it's just an offhand random generic piece of equipment. But I think it's really cool. Maybe not super flavorful, right? Because it's like, you got this like buff guy just like waving around a fan or whatever. But,
Hey, buff guys get hot too. They got to fan themselves
yeah,
off.
it's true. Yeah. But I think that could also be cool. Is just like if maybe you have like some one-handed weapon and then you run Ornate Tessin as your other weapon. That'd be kind of cool.
If you guys were in charge of creating the next Mystic Ninja, what do you think you would do? What would you start with? I guess this is a decent enough. Yeah, go ahead, Aurora.
Oh, sorry. You want?
I was about to change the topic.
Oh yeah. If you want to like change the topic. No. When I was initially like brainstorming ideas for this episode, I think I went in a very similar direction to you, where I basically
you wrote down a mood board, and I read the mood board, and then I came up with this design. So you definitely helped me with this, even if not explicitly.
I think my idea was to have like a weird static ability on Zen, which is like if you draw a Crouching Tiger, or like whenever you draw a Crouching Tiger, draw a card. So like if you put Crouching Tigers in your deck, it's like you're not just getting like IP'd by doing that.
That's cool.
That's like maybe it's like too strong though, because like you might get like this weird overlap where you draw like 3 Crouching Tigers on a turn, and then you have like a 7-card hand or something.
Well, you can make it once per turn, right? I think that'd be a way to balance it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then you just be like really mad when you draw 2 Crouching Tigers in a row.
Yeah. I also think like if you have a lot of non-blocks that don't have a lot of ways to buff themselves, like Crouching Tigers are pretty dependent on like everything else in your deck. So maybe drawing 3 extra cards, like it could just be like combo cards that don't really synergize with each other or redundant blues. I think there's enough variance to make that design balance, but maybe that's just me coping. I don't know.
Yeah, and I think part of my design was also to have like you have that static ability, right? And then you also have like I think you need to like Mystic Heroes have to have like a blue pitch ability. I think like it's part of the flavor, right?
Yeah,
like the chi pitch. And my idea was to just like make a Crouching Tiger in hand, make a Crouching Tiger in Vanish, or something like kind of simple like that. So you have like fodder, and then you also have a tiger that you can like play to like actually like execute on your turn or something like that. That was like an initial idea, but like maybe some renaming synergy would also be good in there. Like that's what I kind of like about your design as well.
It sounds fun in its own way. Like every time I pitch a chi, I make 2 tigers somewhere.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they're just like slowly swarming my deck. Yeah.
Yeah, so you could still play Chase the Tail reliably, but it's not like getting
Oh,
it from your
easy
deck.
chase the tail.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I kind of like that.
You have to kind of like work for it and put stuff in your deck, and then the payoff kind of comes later.
Right.
Was my idea.
No, I love that. I think I'm going in a little bit of a different direction.
Oh.
One design that I was really fascinated with was a Meridian Pathway, which says if you pitch a chi, you may have this gain Ward 3. And I think the triggered ability of like pitching a chi was, I think, underrepresented. Well, obviously, because it's the only card that does that. But I think I would want to revisit that in the hero ability. Now, it might be a little like clunky to if I don't also have like a slew of cards to go with this specific design. So just bear with me.
It's okay. Yeah.
So I would imagine like a hero ability where like whenever you pitch a chi, you may either create a Crouching Tiger or maybe let you name a Crouching Tiger. I think the naming thing I'm less hung up on, but maybe buffing the tiger or giving yourself an anthem. Because one thing that Crouching Tiger decks, at least now, struggle with is finding anthems or ways to buff multiple Crouching Tigers. So theoretically, this deck would be able to play with Tooth and Claw because you just create a lot of tigers in hand, and then maybe your hero ability is like whenever you pitch a chi, you give your tigers +1 this turn, and maybe that makes Sacred Art like a really good card that you play around, like you arsenal it and you try to give all your Crouching Tigers like +1, 2, or 3. But it's harder because you have to find ways to pitch into chi, sort of like how late stage Briar was trying to find new ways to get more Earth cards in pitch.
Sure.
So you keep channel Mount Heroic longer enough. I'm just trying to think of like still having that mid range defense capabilities of Zen, but also having like this stronger pop off turns without just directly grabbing the best card in your deck.
Yeah, I love that idea. Like flipping the Mystic design a little bit on their head and having it just like when you pitch chi, you get their hero ability. It allows the design to lend itself to really tame hero abilities because you don't have to actually spend anything to make the ability work. You get the resources for something else. So it could just be like make a tiger whenever you pitch a chi, or like have the option of like buffing your next tiger or 2 by 1 each. Like that could be like really cool.
Yeah, and then it would also combo really nicely with Shwoom because that requires a chi pitch. So like you're creating tigers, you're naming them, and then maybe you're buffing them through your hero power. So it's like all cohesively one really strong card because of all these different pieces. And I think that's what makes power cards balanced, is when they hinge on other elements of your deck to work properly.
I like that design a lot because I remember some of my earliest memories of Zen, right, were like with Swam in particular. If you have a floating resource, you can't pitch a chi to Swam.
Right.
So there's like a weird sequencing thing that you have to do where it's like you have to find a way to use that one resource and then get rid of it, and then you can Swam. And like the same thing, I guess, kind of works in like modern Zen with like levels, right? You have to find like you have your card, which comes in for 2 cost, right? And then you have to find 1 cost, and then you can play like levels after your 1 cost, pitch a chi, like get the full modes, that kind of thing.
The only other thing I really want to mention before I wrap up my pitch is that we kind of know based on dev talks and such that Zen at some point in development, the Mystic Ninja for the set was going to be Benji. So I could see like if LSS does return to Mystic Ninja, maybe they would take another look at Benji and try to make that work. I think they were just afraid of his specializations being in CC or something because Spring Tidings, I guess, might be strong. Maybe.
Might be okay.
Yeah. Anyway, that's all I got for Blue Pitch. I think now it's time for us to move on to our Arsenal Zone.
Listeners, if this is the first time you're hearing about the Arsenal Zone, maybe you're a subscriber from Flesh and Bad and you're checking out our channel for the first time. The Arsenal Zone is a section of the podcast where we talk about a card. It could be a card that we like, a card that we hate, a card that we like to hate. Either way, we're going to talk about it now. And I think we'll start off with a Patreon submission.
Yes, that's right. If you're a subscriber on our Patreon, you can give us a card to shout out on our Arsenal Zone. And we are going to pick one at random now from our Patreon members because they have given us our suggestions. We're going to pick one at random now. And
Dice roll noise. It's Colton. Woo! Thank you for your submission. It's Dual Threat, and they added this blurb to present with. They did such a phenomenal job at designing this card. The coveted ceiling of 0 for 6 invokes such Timmy energy, but the nuance around but the nuance around balancing it is incredible. First, you can only get full value out of it if you have 2 weapons, which narrows the usability. But the most impressive and elegant design feature is that it breaks the chain from using it, making it substantially harder to layer on more offense. Can't trigger either buff off of mask momentum since it buffs your next 2 attacks, and makes it incredibly difficult to apply to any rupture chain enders. Some bonus serotonin they added. Its floor is giving your next attack action +3, making it really valuable to apply to CNC or any other yucky on hit. It costs 0 and is yellow, letting you still use it to swing both Kodachis or Dachi 1 for 5. Making Whirling Mist Blossom a 5 power on hit draw 2 cards is maniacal. I agree. I can't believe this card still blocks for 3. Also, I agree. That's crazy. Thanks LSS for printing a generic Iris specialization card. And playing 2 dual threats in a turn with a CNC has a hidden mechanic that makes your opponent concede instantly. I can see that now. Definitely. I would definitely concede to that.
yeah, dual threat is one of the things that I think that Ira really has going for it. She seems like she can play dual threat the best, and dual threat is a really good card. Yellow, block 3, 0 for 6 in the right circumstances.
Yeah, great shout out. I think it's just an incredibly strong card. Really well designed, like you said. It just has so many like deck building constraints already baked into the card. I think super balanced, and the decks that can use it love it.
I think it's also hilarious that you called it a generic specialization because like that's very in line with what Ira is now.
Yeah, seriously. It's just like, oh, is it 1 for 5 nasty on hit? Yeah, let's jam it in there. Yeah, great card. Thank you so much for submitting. And Patreon members, if you did not hear your Patreon members, if you didn't hear your card named, don't worry, keep submitting. We'll get to you eventually. It's by the dice. We have to obey the dice. We don't get to pick and choose, unfortunately. Yeah, thank you again for your submission. I think now we'll go to our esteemed guest. Aurora, do you have one in mind?
Yeah, all this talk about putting tigers in the deck has got me thinking about gore belching some more. I cannot seem to, I don't know, it's one of my favorite meme cards right now. Gore belching is a 0 for 7 generic attack action. When this attacks, reveal cards from the top of your deck until you reveal an attack action card. And if you do, you banish it. You give this attack -X, where X is the power of the card banished this way. Otherwise, this gets -7 entirely, and then shuffle your deck. Think like that and Tremor of Earthal are like the 2 cards that I feel like are most in my mind right now.
That's so funny.
Mm-hmm. And they work better together too, right? Because if you play Gore Belching with Go Again or something, then you banished a card, so you can play Tremor for 1 for 6.
Yeah, that is the future that we're gonna probably hold out for when LSS decides to print like weird banish synergy.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Aurora, for the shout out. Gore belching, I agree. Based card, lots of words. I'm gonna go next though, with a card that I was thinking about very early on before any of the other Zen sheep got on. I was the progenitor. No, I'm just kidding. Just Tiger Eye Reflex. It's a blocking card from the Round the Table product that LSS released. It's a 3-block yellow non-pitch card because it's a block card. Or excuse me, no cost because it's a block card. And it says ambush. You may just defend with this card from Arsenal. And when you defend with this card, you create a Crouching Tiger in your banish zone, and you may play it until the end of your next turn. And the reason why I was really hyped on this card is because I wanted extra ways to take advantage of the Crouching Tiger stuff. But of course, when I was first looking at it, Zen was all about the Bonds line, so it didn't really see play. And then I see people playing it when all the nerfs happened or all the bans happened, because you just wanted extra blocking power, and the extra Tiger can make it easier to line up Chase the Tails with that aspect of Tiger Body. And to me, that was just a really interesting deck evolution. I was really glad that I got to play it as often as I did, because again, Crouching Tiger is something that I was missing out on for a while before Zen came along, and even more so when he wasn't using basically any of the Crouching Tiger stuff. So yeah, that's my card.
It's a sick card.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I really like Tiger Eye Reflex a lot. I think one of my friends who's in the Pro Tour was running like 2 or 3 of copies of Tiger Eye. It's like pretty good, like okay right now, like surprisingly.
Yeah, it's not terrible. I personally wasn't running any in the Pro Tour because I needed room for other hate pieces, but still a card that's near and dear to my heart, and I'm going to try to find ways to use it in other ninjas for sure.
Yeah, and like this day and age Zen, the only reason why I wouldn't run it is just because you can only run so many defensive cards and still call yourself like an aggro deck, you know? Like if we want to run Wax On, Wax Off, and like Sync Below is also really good in Zen, and then like Shelter is really good against some other matchups.
Flick Flag is also pretty decent.
Oh yeah, right? But Tiger Eye being able to also give you that offensive value of making your turn work is really clutch.
I really like the design of the ambush block cards because it means you can still like block with them from Arsenal, but you're not like they're not as tricksy, right? So there's like a downside to it, whereas like there's not really a downside to like 0-4 reacts right now.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. But that's pretty much all I had to say about Tiger Reflex. Fuzzy, do you have a card for us?
Yeah, I kind of have my thing on the Arsenal Zone is I always love to bring a copy of the card that I'm shouting out, sign it, and give it to each of my fellow hosts. So Aurora, that includes you today. I brought a copy of the card that I'm shouting out, and I'll be giving one to Joel and one to you, Aurora, the next time I see you. Maybe.
Maybe.
The card that I'm shouting out today is Splatter Skull.
Oh!
I like to bust out the Majestics when we got guests.
Yeah, you're like your Aurora.
Nice.
So basically, with Zen rotating out, the hero that I'm most excited to play next is Rhinar. And I think if I were to pick one card that like pushes Rhinar into being a viable non-throw pick as a hero, it would be Splatter Skull, because for the longest time, like what was Brute's thing is they push a bunch of numbers, they have evasion from Intimidate, but they don't have on hits, and that's what kind of balanced them. Splatter Skull breaks that a little bit. It's conditional. I'll read it for you, listeners, so that way you can know what I'm talking about. It is a 2-cost, 6-power red Majestic that blocks for 3. It's a Brute action attack. When this hits a hero, choose a face-down card in their banished zone that was banished by Intimidate this turn, put it into their graveyard. It's kind of like a CNC variant, but it destroys an intimidated card, which is really kind of different, right? It's true that you have to have Intimidate effects in your deck in order to get any value out of the on-hit, and it's also true that you need to hit with this card in order to get that value, but like, the Intimidate was something random that they didn't get to choose. A lot of hand disruption is something that like maybe your opponent gets to choose what they get rid of, or if you're using CNC, they're going to block with 2 cards in their hand in order to stop the CNC effect from happening. But once you've intimidated a couple cards out of their hand, blocking it becomes a lot more specific, because either the cards that they had left are blocking cards that they're comfortable giving up, or they're giving up equipment. And if you're able to pump this card with a Blood Rush Bellows, which is something that all Brutes are playing because it's like the best card in your deck, or you're able to pump it with like Barraging Beatdown, which also intimidates, then suddenly the Splatter Skull is an on-hit that they're going to get hit by, they're going to lose cards out of their hand, and they're still taking that damage. And being able to mix up your evasion with these devastating on-hits, I think, is a big part of like why I'm actually able to win some games with Rhinar, you know?
Yeah, this card is pretty gas because a lot of the times with Rhinar, when they banish your defense reaction that you wanted to use to defend, it really changes the way you have to play against Rhinar. Like, you have to pick and choose, like, okay, well, I need these cards to pitch, so I can't really block with them. So oftentimes you're, like, taking damage. But if you do, like, a Blood Rush Bellow, Intimidate, a really good card, Mandible Claw, they take all the damage, or maybe they block some of it, and then they can't block the Splatter Skull at the end of the chain, or they take a lot of the damage from the Mandible Claws and then have to block the Splatter Skull, otherwise their turn sucks. Like, it just creates a lot of really bad branching decision trees for the opponent.
Yeah.
And that makes it like a real game against Rhinar, other than like, okay, I'm going to take this damage, I keep all my hands because you don't have disruption, you know?
Yeah. Like, just to rephrase what you were just saying, like, the fact that Reinar incentivizes you to block early because you might get your hands intimidated and not be able to block later. But then putting this at the end flips that incentive and makes it a lot harder of a decision for your opponent.
Right.
But yeah, about Spoiler Skull in particular also is like with hand disruption, I really like hand disruption that gives your opponent the choice of like how they want to get disrupted as opposed to like you choose, because you get a lot of like really disgusting value if you get to choose as your opponent. Like,
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
But yeah, I'm a big fan of Spoiler Skull, so thank you very much for the copy.
Yeah. Well, I think that about wraps up our show. Any closing thoughts, anyone?
Yeah, Aurora, where can the people find you?
Yeah, so we have the YouTube channel, obviously, Flesh and Bad, and then we also have a Bluesky account where Tegan posts most of our unhinged, Bluesky takes.
Of course.
But yeah, I think those are the two main places. We also have an email, but I don't think anyone uses it.
And I heard a rumor you have an underground Patreon.
Hey, yo.
Oh yeah, we do technically have a page. I don't encourage people to subscribe to my Patreon just because like we mostly just use it to post like project updates. But if you want to be one of the insane people who subscribes to our Patreon, we will put you at the end of every video. So that is your incentive.
Well, since Aurora won't do it, I will. Be sure to go check out their Patreon. They do a lot of really good work on their YouTube channel, and I can't wait to see what other projects they have in their Patreon. So go check that out. While you're at it, if you're just got your credit card out, join our Patreon, because like we said, you can join the Crucible matchup every month that Fuzzy puts on, as well as get our updates about the articles that we post, or maybe you get to shout out a card that your favorite nerds get to talk about for a little bit, much like Colton did. So feel free to join us there. And remember, our Discord is the only place you can get high C spoilers, so be sure to check it out. But yeah, I think that about wraps it up.
Have a good night, everyone.
Until
thank you
next
all
time,
so
guys.
much.
Yeah, thank you, Aurora, for joining us. This was
so nice.
such a
Yeah,
blast.
thank you for inviting me as well.
Of course. Until next time, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Pitch It To Me podcast is hosted by Fuzzy Delp, Clark Moore, and Joel Recinos. Our executive producer is Talon Stradley. Logistics coordinator, John Farkas. Music by Dylan Hulse. Logo by Han V. And sound mixing by Christopher Moore. Last but not least, we'd like to thank you, the listener. Thank you for tuning in. Please give us a follow on your favorite social media platform at Pitch It To Me podcast.
And the more suggestions we get, the more likely it is that we start doing, like, I don't know, 2 of these per episode.
Ooh. Yeah, that's
I
true.
get to say that while Clark's not here. We get to start making rules.
Yeah, executive decisions. Yeah, and I think gore belching might be the most words on a card. Is that true?
It's a lot of words.
Yeah.
Is it?
It's like a paragraph of text.
Just going off vibes, it feels like the most words on a card.
Okay, vibes, as in I don't have to get fact checked. I think Codex of Frailty has a lot of fucking words on it.
Oh, true.
that's true.
Yeah. All right, don't fact check that.
So figure out what card has the most words on it.
Like vibes wise.
Yeah, only on vibes, not from stats. We don't pay attention to that.
Yeah, who cares about actual numbers?